Hey everybody, how's it going? We're doing our thing here. I got a little background music. I got a new intro. I was getting a copy. Well, it wasn't a copyright strike, but Facebook didn't like that I was using copyrighted music because listen, if Adam Makes Beer is anything, it's on the cutting edge. My buddy Kevin Kevin from Moss Donkey let me use an unreleased song of his for my intro. And then when he released it on Spotify, it wouldn't let me play on YouTube. So, I'm spilling a little coffee. Hopefully everybody's doing well. Facebook doesn't like a lot of things. R. Gibby, what's good, man? Welcome. Good to see you. Hey to everybody in the chat. It's been a while since we've had a solo pod. This is episode 91 of the Adam Makes Beer podcast. This is an AMA episode. Ask me anything. Topics, questions. We'll figure it out. We'll chop it up. Are people still chopping it up? That's what I want to know. Hopefully everybody's doing well out there tonight. Hopefully your beers are fermenting appropriately, carbonating just the way you want them. And we're going to be digging into it all today. A couple pieces of Adam Makes Beer news. If you haven't gone to adammakesbeer.com, you're going to want to get over there. Ill-Gotten Grains, good to see you in the chat, man. I got a question from you coming up tonight. And just so everybody knows, drop those questions in the chat, questions, topics. We'll talk about it. We'll figure it out. We'll have a good time. Gibby is back in here. Do people still screw things up once they chop them up? It's possible. I'll also say this. I listen to a fair amount of rap. And one phrase that is used repeatedly, at least with the rap that I listen to, is people talk about shooting the gift. Their rhymes, calling them the gift. I like that. I don't have rhymes, so maybe I don't have the gift, but I do have adammakesbeer.com. Make sure to get over there. It's going to be your home base for all of the Adam Makes Beer goodies that you need. Do you need some marketing help? Do you want some brewery consultation? You want a bunch of free brewing information, education, leadership development stuff? Baby, get over there. Okay? It's all there. Get over there, check it out. Reach out to me if you have any questions. There's a contact page on the old website, just like any professional would have. Speaking of which, if you're also looking to drop me questions, the best way, aside from the contact form on adammakesbeer.com, is probably sliding into my DMs on Instagram. I'm not always the quickest with them, but they are always there and I can find them and I will get back to you as soon as I can. That's a very good way to get in contact with me as well. Speaking of getting in contact with me, March 23rd through 26th, baby. Why don't you head over to beautiful Dayton, Ohio? I don't know if you can still sign up for the Ohio Craft Brewers Association conference if you haven't already. It was originally scheduled for January, and then we got the mother of all snowstorms here. And it seems like that hit most of the United States, at least the mid to eastern portions, and we got dumped on with a bunch of snow, and they had to cancel that boy. They were able to reschedule for March 23 through 26, though still in beautiful Dayton, Ohio, if I haven't said it already. We're going to be over there. We're going to be having a good time. We're going to be doing the full conference thing. Monday night is going to be some of the introductory meetings, some social hours, some stuff like that. It'll be good. And then on Tuesday, the 24th, I'm going to be giving a talk on recipe creation, a recipe writing workshop. You're not going to want to miss that if you're at the conference. And if you're at the conference, just come over your boy and say hi. Know what I mean? It's a little bit challenging when all of your connections are on the internet and you see my face a million times. And even if we're linked on Instagram, I don't often, like, even if we're connected on Instagram, I try not to interface with the platform all that much, because especially for somebody that does, content for a living, I try to limit the amount of time that I spend on social media, especially since I have to spend a fair amount of time there because of the stuff that I make. Speaking of the stuff that I make, I'm interested in hearing more feedback and loving the feedback that I'm getting so far on the weekly kind of information forward one, something that's packaged just for short form content, whether it's recipe writing minute, brew day tips. I've been doing stuff like that. Feedback has been really good on that stuff, and I appreciate it. Keep those questions and comments coming with all of that stuff. It's been it's been busy around Adam Makes Beer headquarters here in the city with no pity, Cincinnati, Ohio. My boy number 2 just got married this past weekend. That was a beautiful thing. I don't know if you out there have experienced that, if you're married yourself, or if you've experienced your children entering into that portion of their lives. It's a beautiful thing, man. But my 2 oldest are both out there doing their things. They're working. They found their spouses. And I'm always struck by, when I go to weddings, I'm not sure what your experience with that is, but when I go to weddings and, now it's like my kids now and stuff, I'm always struck by a lot of times the lack of experience, how young people can be when they're getting married. I got married young. My kids are getting married young as well. And as a father, you want to worry, and I'm just a little inclined to worry anyways, but you want to worry for them, but they're so full of joy and they're so full of love and they're so full of excitement for marrying that special person. And because my wife and I, this year is going to be 25 years for us. So married, that is, not just together. We've been together since we were a freshman and sophomore in college. And I don't know, it's, like the struggles they'll hit, or at least something like the struggles that they're hit. And that there's going to be some up and down to it. But you're excited for them to be on the path. Watching my oldest watch, my second oldest get married this time, it was the first time that I had seen the 2 of them interact where he had not like old eyes, but like experienced eyes, like he has a little taste of marriage and working and adulthood, So it was cool to see experience start to be building up in him a little bit, like that, some of that early stage wisdom that comes from experience. So that was really beautiful, man. We're able to get together with family and friends, and the family that my son is marrying into is just full of wonderful people. They were so welcoming and so kind to us. It was just really a blessing. The last couple months have been very busy around here, and a lot of change, and that stuff can bring about stress. And that's just what life throws at you. There's going to be the ups and downs and the tension and the difficulties, but having the wedding to go to, my friend reminded me, he said, we're gathering for the wedding feast. We're gathering to see something joyful, and it's a good reminder of when things are a little tougher, about how beautiful things can be. So also while I was up there, I went back to Michigan. The wedding was in Michigan. For those of you that know, I'm originally a Michigan boy. Right? I mean, the case in point, I'm repping Lions right here, baby. Okay. I'm a Michigan boy. We went up to Grand Rapids. It was beautiful. I forgot how fun that town is. It definitely has like the big small town feel to it, like the small town city kind of feel to it. And we just had a blast catching up with everybody. And honestly, it's been 5 years since I've been up there. What up, Linwood? Good to see you in here. And Drunk with Buds. Listen, man. I mean, love to you too. I hope you're doing well. Yeah, ma'am. When we were up there, we had the rehearsal for the wedding on Thursday. And so I had some free time on Friday. So I hit up Archival just north of Grand Rapids. I was talking to them a while back, I think like August of 25, about coming up there and doing a brew day with them. And things kind of fell through on scheduling on my side, but I was able to get in and brew an Irish Stout with the gang over there, and I have that all recorded, and that'll be dropping in on March 1st. That's when you'll start seeing the shorts from it, when you'll see the long form stuff popping up on it. Drunk with Buds, you guys are in South Bend? Okay. Not too far away. Not too far away. But yeah, it was great to get up there and brew with them. We were brewing Irish Stout. We were talking some business operations. They have a beautiful location over there. If you're ever in the Grand Rapids area, you really need to get over to Archival. I'm wearing an Archival hoodie right now, baby. I was missing one. I was missing my zip up. I have a bunch of pullovers right now, so they hooked me up with that, which reminds me, I need to shoot a couple of Adam Makes Beer hoodies over to Levi and the rest of the crew over there. But it's always interesting when I get together with people, because I hit up some old friends from the Grand Rapids area asking me, for some leads for a brew day up there. And Archival opened after I had already left the state. And sweetheart Sarah, who used to work at Siciliano's, she pointed me in their direction. But you go up there, and I've only exchanged emails with them, so it's nice to have good people to point you in the direction of people to do these collab brew days with. And I got there. I'm always a little nervous, but they were super cool, super welcoming. We really had a blast. So you're not going to want to miss it. We're brewing on a 10-barrel system. We did a half batch of Irish Stout that day. I'm going to try to cough here. Hold on a second. So, I mean, as always, we're just diving into process, talking beer, talking operations, kind of talking some of the ins and outs of when you are brewing on a system and you want to have a smaller batch size. We dig into, some of the ramifications around that process-wise. So that'll be a fun one. Last month, so right now, the videos are out, and I actually broke into a series for Mad Tree where we brew their IPA Psychopathy. Do you want to know a secret? Somebody spelled psychopathy wrong on all the thumbnails for the YouTube videos and hasn't fixed it yet. I don't know who that could be. Maybe it was your boy. But that was the first. Usually I've been dropping those brew day videos just kind of like in one big master video. And I decided to break them up this time. And I did that with the Mad Tree video as well. And I've gotten feedback on both sides about it. Some people are like, I would rather just have the whole video all at once. Or I've also had like my short attention span prefers dropping the brew day in a series. So make sure to let me know what you think about that when you check it out. If you have not checked out the brew day series that I have going on YouTube, I can tell you the playlist here real quick. That'll be listed under. It is listed under. Oh, actually, this one is just listed as a playlist, full brew day with Mad Tree Brewing. I have another one, breweries unlocked inside the process. That's where I have a bunch of other long form videos that I've been doing on the in brewery content side of things. So make sure you're checking that stuff out. It was a lot of fun. And I wouldn't say it if it wasn't true. I had a blast with the people at Archival. They're the kind of folks that, I can't taste their beer, right? I mean, we've talked about that before, but just from seeing the processes that they have going on in the brew house, they're awesome people. Really nice people, and I'm sure they have some killer beverages going on over there because everything was really tight in the brew house. So that was a lot of fun. Keep your eyes peeled for that. A couple other things to check out. If you missed, you are going to want to make sure to check out the podcast that I did recently with Chris Loring, talking lager. We dive into his brew house setup. He's known for his Czech style and Franconian style beers. He does a lot of decoction. Smart guy, really well educated, interesting to listen to. We had a blast, and if you listen to that early in the podcast, he just started giving me very nice compliments about the stuff that I'm doing with Adam Makes Beer. That was unprovoked. And I also didn't know exactly like how to stop him to say thank you or just to stop him in general. But no, it was nice to hear somebody that was, that had his level of experience, his level of success, have an appreciation for what we're doing over here on the channel. And he's just a funny dude. He's an entertaining listen. If you've seen some of the shorts that I've been putting on Instagram, he's a funny guy, smart guy. I loved the conversation that I had with him. You're also going to want to check out my interview with Teresa Sudi from Crooked Lane. She was awesome. Great lady to talk to. We were talking beer. We were talking operations because she's part owner there. That was a great time. And then I would also point you out to episode 87 with my buddy Kevin Granger. Kevin Granger is he's the mastermind behind Moss Donkey. So I said I had to switch up the theme song for the show here a little bit. It was his music that I was playing before, and he's a musician, and he is also a missionary. So he goes around the world doing missionary aid stuff, and we talked kind of about balancing passion versus calling. Right. And our industry is so passion driven, I feel like. And so we're just kind of talking because he's like not a beer guy. He's not an industry guy, but he has such an interesting thing because obviously music is a passion for him, but he has this other very meaningful thing that he does as well. So kind of talking about finding that balance and kind of discussing around those points, sorting through the idea of calling, sorting through the idea of passion. I think it was really, I think it's a fun, worthwhile conversation. So you're going to want to jump back and check those out. You will want to be looking forward to my conversation on February 24th with the great and powerful Dr. Matt Winans. That's right, Dr. Matt Winans. He had the #1 streamed podcast on Spotify for me last year. Did I already say 2025? In 2025, he had my most streams for his podcast. Super smart guy. I'm going to be looking. We have some topics that we want to dig into. But I'm also looking for questions on that stuff. So keep an eye out for the promotional stuff rolling out, and make sure to get me questions for Dr. Matt, because he's a wealth of knowledge, ladies and gentlemen. He's a wealth of knowledge. Speaking of a wealth of knowledge, let's talk about my friends at Blickman Engineering. Starting a brewery is a big step. Blickman Engineering is here to help. Since 2006, they've equipped hundreds of nano breweries for success. Their new 3.5 barrel Pro Surface electric brewing system cuts maintenance and saves at least 30 minutes per brew day with powerful under kettle heating. From 1 to 15 barrel brew houses to keg washers and grain mills, Blickman has what you need. Ready to go pro? Contact Phil or Tom at ProSeries at blickmanengineering.com. Blickman Engineering is a proud sponsor of this channel and loves to help brewers at every stage of their journey. This episode is also brought to you by Senos. Senos turns every tank into a smart tank with real-time fermentation data and analytics, all captured automatically. Ditch manual checks and coming in on the weekends. No more guessing, just clear, actionable insights that help you brew your best batch every time. Brewers use Senos to deliver consistent quality, prevent product loss, and scale with confidence. Brew smarter, waste less, profit more. Visit Senos.com to book a free demo. That's SENNOS.com. Senos, the future of fermentation technology. Now, listen, ladies and gentlemen, Senos is new in sponsoring the channel. Blickman is an OG, but please make sure to be reaching out to them for your equipment needs. Senos has I have some cool content coming up with them, and we're going to be focusing on data tracking and the importance of that. And then we're going to be talking about a technology that they have that's built to solve those problems. But it's really important to me that you let them know that you're happy that they're supporting me. Okay. So hitting up their websites, shooting them a message, telling them that you appreciate supporting content like this, that goes a long way. Hit them up for a free demo. When you need new equipment or spare parts or what have you, something with your brew house, make sure to hit up Blickman. They have a ton of stuff. I mean, anything from they can sell anything from pilot stuff for you. You know what I mean? So anything from pilot to big stuff, Blickman can hook you up. So please make sure to show them some love, because they are legitimately helping me feed my kids. So yeah. There was one other thing that I was going to mention. Oh, baby. Have we talked about Philly yet? I'm going to Philly. I'm going to be in there. I'm going to be giving a talk. I just had somebody polish up my bio that they're going to be using for the promotional stuff for the talk. I don't know who that guy is. Whoever they're talking about, I gave a buddy of mine, Jay, this just some outline points, and he put something together, and I'm like, I don't know who this guy is, but he's all right. And apparently it was me. So it was all news to me, though. So you know how it is. So I'm going to be in Philly, baby, living large. If you see me in the streets, say what's good. I'm going to be looking forward to seeing everybody. Remember, when you see me and you're like, oh, hey, let's have a beer. Can I buy you a beer? Do you want a beer? Hey, the bar's over there. Go get yourself a beer. I can't drink beer, but baby, I'll have a cocktail with you. I'll sip on some bourbon. I'll sip on a little tequila. So let's tear it up in Philly. Let's have a good time. I'm looking forward to being out there. It's going to be excellent. Excellent. Speaking of excellent, we have a wide range of awesome questions that people have been dropping. Ill-Gotten Grain says he has his eye on the Brew Easy Surface kettle. Yeah, man, hit him up. Hit him up. Tell him it came from me. Lizard Brews, good to see you in here. Cheers, man. Make sure to be dropping your questions. I do have room for questions tonight for sure. So if you have any questions, topics, anything on your mind, make sure to be dropping it in here. The Q&A pods, it seems like they used to happen a little bit more often. I'm such in the flow of having a guest on, and obviously not having a guest. Yeah, it's a solo pod, baby. It's what we're doing. So it's fun. It's fun. It's fun to be in here hanging out with you guys and taking questions. So make sure to drop that stuff in here. A sip of coffee, ladies and gents. If I had to write for you a list of reasons how I'm fortunate, how I've been blessed, the list would be very long. Part of that list, maybe further toward the bottom, is I've been very fortunate to receive very little negative feedback with the stuff that I put online. As YouTube and Instagram grows, though, and the other platforms grow, you will get some nonsense stuff. There's a period of time where I was getting like some very body type, like bots. I don't even think they're real people. They're just going in and like saying crazy political things that don't even make sense. And why? So I don't even understand why that happens on a channel like mine, but it does. But by and large, everybody's so kind online. They're appreciative, and it is kind of an outlier. And even when I've been doing some of these educational shorts, specifically for short form on recipe writing, brew day processes, very rarely I do. If somebody disagrees with me, like very rarely are people like rude. But I did have a rude comment on YouTube, and it was spinning off of, bro, are you drinking mezcal, Linwood? We'll do it. We'll do it. You're gonna have to watch my pace, though. I will tell you that. I don't know if you're a straight sipper. I'm that young sipper. I mean, I can have it mixed a little bit, and it helps spread it out a little bit. I find when I'm drinking straight, I can hit the point of hilarity a little bit faster than I want to. But yeah, man, it'll be a good time. So anyways, back to this comment. I had this comment come up on YouTube. And it's funny because it's somebody, a lot of times people don't have real names on YouTube, but this person, like I Googled them, and it's like just his full first and last name for his comment. And fine, you can do that. Go for it. You're saying what you think and, whatever. But I love that interview that I did with Chris Loring from Notch. You heard me talking about it before. I mean, he really talked about his brew house and what it's built to do and how you can, and some of the things that you can do to make great lager on your own, like with your own setup, even if you don't have the horizontal lagering tanks. Even if you don't have, atmospheric or, open fermenters, even if you don't have the capacity to decoct, right? So, it was a great conversation. And, Chris is a smart, educated dude. He doesn't have to like get on and like tell people like his thoughts on it. And I thought that he was very open. And for me, the podcast was a blast. The feedback has been super positive. That one might end up being one of my bigger podcasts for 2026, just from the views that I'm getting on it right now. So if you haven't watched it, you should. But I got this comment on YouTube from Jack. From the internet, Brewbound. Quote, Notch Brewing produces a significant portion of its beers through contract brewing with, for example, approximately 6,000 barrels out of 8,000 total annual barrels produced off-site. While they operate their own locations in Salem and Brighton, Massachusetts, much of their distributed volume is brewed at partners. It would have been of interest to learn how the majority of their beers, 6,000 barrels, were produced. Cheers! Exclamation point. I read that as him being sassy about it, taking a shot at Chris, because they're leveraging contract brewing. And again, Chris, a guy for free who is taking time out of his schedule to tell other people that don't have the experience that he has how they can continue to grow, right? I felt like this was kind of a shitty response to watching that podcast, and this is your takeaway. So anyways, I responded, it's fascinating to me that you think this comment says more about him than it does about you. I mean, the reality is I don't have to Google. I don't have to Google Mr. Loring. I did have to Google Jack. And that maybe was one of the reasons that he's seemed a little bit salty with his question asking. So anyways, he does bring up a point, and it's something that I have some opinions on. And he talks about, he seems to imply that there's a stigma to contract brewing, that there's something wrong with contract brewing. And I think it's worth talking about. I did an episode, a Brew Day episode with Little Miami Brewing, another great bunch of guys over there. We had a blast. We went through, talked about it all, did it all. It was the best. And one of the things that we talked about in that video was they're a small pub and they move a volume for a pub, man. It's awesome. Like through their taps in-house, they are selling mad volume in-house. And we all know that's how you make that cash. Okay. So he's on a 7-barrel system and they are ripping tons of volume through there. And it's like, hats off. Congratulations. Your business is crushing it. In order to do that, they have to take, or they have chosen to take, some beers that are high volume beers and cheap beers to produce and have them made in a contract fashion locally. Okay. So what that means is that they're going to take a smaller margin on those beers, on those kegs, when they bring those contract beers in a house and pour them, but they're still making money on them. In part because, well, not just in part, but remember, we also said that these are inexpensive beers. And then what this lets them do is this lets them, with the 7-barrel side of things, have a ton of variety, all the seasonal beers they want, and everybody's favorite beer on tap. It sounds like a win to me. And there's a period of time when I was brewing where I would have said to myself, well, if something's being contract brewed, it's not my beer, blah, 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 blah. But I would say, and in my experience, and maybe you still have that opinion, and that's fine if you do. I've turned the corner on that line of thinking, and it was especially after talking to Little Miami. It's like, okay, here's a guy that has found a solution that allows him to brew all the beers he wants and to maximize the volume of his pub. Again, win-win. Obviously, when you are working with a contract partner, you want to have somebody that is going to, have the quality controls that you want, being able to measure and track your numbers, to be able to report those things out to you, that will use the ingredients that they want, that you want them to use, all of those things. But sometimes I feel as if we get a little high on our own supply as brewers from an ego standpoint, where like, it's not my beer, or what, it is what it is. Okay. I'm a little bit in the same space. I'm not a huge fan of when I hear pros want to take shots at how people are doing their business. First example is something like this. taking a dump, trying to take a dump on somebody, because it sounds like what they're doing for distro, they're doing in contract, right? And that they're clearly doing like 2,000 barrels a year of decocted beer. You're making serious sacrifices from a production standpoint when you're doing that. So anyways, Jack, I hope your day gets better. I don't like takes like that, and trying to be like a little side swipey, and especially just not coming right out and saying what's on your minds. You got to beat around the bush. It just seemed a little weaselly to me, man. But you know, it is what it is. I feel protective about the fact that Chris was super cool to come on the podcast, and he was a great guest. And then people can be dumb in the comments. I can take it when it's me. Well, it still hurts my feelings, but I can take it when it's me. At least it's at me. I don't like it when people take shots at guests. So anyways, that's that. What else? Was there something else I was going to say about it? Maybe. We got Lizard Brews in the chat. All our lagers don't use decoction mash, and they turn out fine. Chris is right to get the 99 other things right. Yeah, I think that was actually one of the things that I clipped for Instagram today, for short form today, was he was saying, horizontal lagering tanks, decoction, everybody thinks that, it's just this one key that's going to change it's going to change the game. Like this is what's going to make my lager perfect. And he was saying that, there's 99 other things that all need to be in play as well, right? It can be an element. It can be part of the character of your beer. But there's so many other things that come into play with that. And one of them that I liked was his focus on heirloom varieties of base malt. So anyways, if you haven't checked out that pod, you should. It was a good time. And yeah, don't come at my guests. Don't come at my guests in the comments. I don't like that. It makes you look petty. Anyways, did I bring some bad energy to the podcast, ladies and gentlemen? Did I bring some bad energy? I don't think I did. Oh, Maxwell House is in the chat. What's good, dude? Hopefully your studies are going well. This is an AMA pod. If you got those questions, ask me anything, baby. Ask me anything. We'll open it up tonight. We can talk beer, brewing, or you can just ask me anything. All right. Next question comes from Taco Killer on Instagram. This is a topic. It's not a question. But TK, as I like to call him, volunteers this statement: double dry hop is just a marketing scheme. I enjoyed that. Statement. Have I had that thought myself? Yes. I think part of the reason is you saw it become so pervasive in the way that beers were described, or can labeling, things like that. So if you turn into a question, is double dry hopping, is DDH just a marketing scheme? I am firmly riding the fence on this one, ladies and gents, and I am saying both yes and no. When, there are ways that I think that you can carry out a 2-stage dry hop that can have impact on the beer. Okay. I actually have a meme coming up this week. I don't know if anybody's going to think it's funny or not, but I know I will. I thought it was funny. I made it. That's how that goes. But it was referencing the Scott Janish book, New IPA. And I've just learned so much from that book. And yes, some things in there might be dated, but there's some great big picture concepts and even some minutia in there that's very valuable. Definitely a recommended read. And, you know, and other times I've heard Scott talk, I've heard him talk about, you know, the issues that can come up with really large dry hops. So a lot of times for him, he's talking about dry hops in the 4 to 6 pound per barrel range. Apologies to all of my international friends that are not on freedom units, but that's the only way that I process that ratio in my mind. It's what I've always worked with, is pounds per barrel for dry hop. And, you know, if you're going in and you're dry hopping 4 to 6 pounds per barrel, and you're going in through the top of the fermenter, whether you're using a hop doser or not, and you're hitting up the top with those pellets, those things are going to float. They're going to form a mat. They may never drop through your beer. Scott talks about, you know, rousing them, things like that. So the question is if I'm going to do a 4 to 6 pound dry hop, that's like what the beer is meant to be. And I've done this before. You know, I had a beer that was a 4 pound per barrel dry hop when I was at Cartridge. It was not double dry hopped. I just went in with 4 pounds per barrel. And yes, I did rouse it with CO2, but that's neither here nor there. And then from an experimental standpoint, I knew what that beer was like after doing sensory on that. The next time I brewed it, I broke that dry hop up and I separated it by a couple days, maybe, just off the top of my head. 2 pounds one day, rouse it, let that get through, circulate a little bit, and then come back either 24 or 48 hours later and hit it with the second dose. It's still the same volume of dry hops. So is it truly a double dry hop at that point? And here I think we're getting into some of the issues that people have with that nomenclature around that, right, of double dry hop. And it does just kind of become a markety, buzzwordy kind of thing. But there is legitimate reasons to be double dry hopping or separating your dry hop. I think a lot of times people assume that double dry hopping it's double the dry hop load. And maybe that's what it means for your brewery, if you're listing as that. And that's great. You know, I think ideally we want things to be descriptive so people understand what's going on. But also, I feel like maybe we've spent too much time explaining things that maybe only brewers are interested in on can art, instead of telling people what the hell the beer tastes like. So anyways, I don't know. That's just kind of my take on the double dry hop thing, Taco Killer. So yeah, a little bit of yes, a little bit of no. That's my thoughts on it. Let me know what you think in the comments. The chat's popping, ladies and gentlemen. It's a veritable N9. What is that? I don't know what that is, man. Liz Brew says, bro, N9, Bo, no. House of the Builder, what's good, man? Good to see you. Hope you're doing well. We have a deep dive question. This is not always how things go. A lot of times, man, the questions come into the chat, baby, it's just off the cuff. You know what I mean? The questions are rolling in. I'm just answering them. That's how it goes. But sometimes I pull a topic, I pull a question. Where I get a lot of my questions for this stuff is if you leave questions or comments on YouTube videos or on Instagram DMs, I'll scroll through once a month. What up, Bobby? Hello to you. Drop those questions if you got them. Yeah, and so I'll scroll through and get those questions. This is one that I got a little bit ahead of time. He was in here earlier. Hopefully he's still in here. Ill-gotten grains, IGG, as I like to call him. Ironically, on IG, Instagram. Let's talk about DMS, baby. His question is, when it comes to the hop side, can a 20-minute boil work, or is one our necessary. This is a topic that I've had people get very mad at me about. When I made a meme, ladies and gentlemen, it was Rocky, like from the movie Rocky, screaming about how he's scared. Okay, I'm scared. You want to know why I'm scared? And I said it was like brewers explaining why they can't reduce the boil time on their Pilsner malts because they're afraid of DMS. Conventional wisdom had it when I was coming up brewing that, standard brewer's malt or anything darker as far as a base malt goes really only requires a 60-minute boil. The paler malts, the Pilsner malts, the ultra pale Pilsner malts require a 90-minute. And I know a lot of people that do 90-minute even when they don't use Pilsner malt. They're still just using a malt that is less prone to give you DMS. But this question about a 20-minute boil as opposed to a 1 hour or even extending it to a 90-minute boil, which is what a lot of people will do as well. There's a lot of ins and outs to this. And let's go through a quick checklist. But then I have some deep dive stuff from the wise Scott Janish, who did some great work on his blog. To call it a blog is an insult. It's an insult. His blog's it. You need to read it if you're not. So a few things. The main idea here is that we're talking about DMS, cooked corn type character that can last into the finished beer. The precursor for that is called SMM, and we have the opportunity in the kettle to boil that off. So both the vigor of the boil, usually sometimes tied to evaporation rate as well, the length of the boil, the duration of the boil, all those things typically play in. And DMS is something that a lot of times people will talk about it's not in my beer, right? It's not necessarily something that part of the problem there is very few of us, because I mean, most brewers out there are on the pub side, on the smaller side of things. Few of us actually have the lab capability to tell us what our DMS level actually is in our finished beer. And so just because you're not tasting it doesn't mean it's not there, right? I mean, nobody's palate is perfect. And maybe you're a super smeller, super taster when it comes to DMS. All right. But these numbers that Janish was running was saying, when you take a bunch of commercial ales and lagers, there is above threshold level DMS in them. But listen, don't let me spoil the lead here. Let's dig into it. Some of the things surrounding DMS that I don't often hear people talk about. Okay. That's what we're gonna dig into in this conversation. First of all, let's talk about pH, quick hitter. And this is from Scott Janish's article on DMS on his website. And let me see what exactly it's How to Prevent DMS in Beer, a look at studies and experimental brew with tested results. Again, does that sound amazing? It's for a reason, because it is. Do yourself a favor. Point one that we're going to discuss beyond those other points that we kind of touched on briefly. You want to consider pH when you're thinking about DMS. It was found, and this is quoted right from Scott Janish's blog, it was found that worts with high starting pH can lead to greater amounts of DMS in the final beer. Fascinating. Point two, kettle foam. One of the most recent studies on DMS looked at the role of beer foam, or foam in the kettle, during boiling and the impact of the evaporation of DMS, or potentially means SMM, from the wort. The authors found that the vaporization of DMS was strongly enhanced in the presence of beer foam versus trials where an anti-foam agent was used. Interesting. Although the direct cause of this was not the point of the study, they speculated that one explanation could be that DMS might actually concentrate in the foam and then strip from the wort by the rising vapor of the boil. That's really interesting to me. That one was one, it's not like the typical one that you hear when we're breaking down the DMS thing. I love that. And I don't know about you, but I've worked at a ton of places that use no foam. Now, in no foam's defense, the last thing you want is that kettle boiling over on you. So, you know what I mean? I'm not going to fault anybody for using no foam. And also, notice even how he writes this stuff. Like, it's approached through a research scientific way, because it says, you know, like the study wasn't built for this, but it seems to suggest that there may be something at play here. I love when people, like, you know, use the right words, because words mean things. Shout out Eric Fouch. Hot stands, the third point. When we're talking about a hot stand, we're talking about the period of time after you have flamed out and you are whirlpooling, resting, and knocking out. So, because remember, when, especially on most systems that we're talking about, when I was brewing at home, I would just cool the entire volume of the kettle at once. But remember, in every other setup, you have a hot volume of wort that's going through the heat exchanger, and so you have cold wort. And so sometimes you're just like, oh, well, I'm cooling now. That timer on that rest is kind of over, right? My wort's cold. Well, not all of it's cold, and a lot of it's staying hot for a long time. So let's discuss hop stands when it comes to DMS. During hot stands, where the wort remains at hot temperatures after the boil, now typically called hop stands, any remaining SMM in the wort that wasn't evaporated during the boil will continue to hydrolyze, and more free DMS will be formed. One study extended a hot wort stand by 1 hour and found higher DMS concentrations, from an average of around 49 micrograms per liter up to 104 micrograms per liter. I didn't know what the symbol was for microgram, so I had to Google it. But even just dummy math says with that extension of the hop stand by an hour, you're at least increasing that DMS presence in that beer by twofold, by double. You're doubling it. Okay. Very interesting. This means if a short boil time is combined with an extended hop stand or hot rest, more DMS in the final beer could be formed. Or in the commercial realm, if a long whirlpool is conducted in a well-insulated vessel, or long transfer times occur at hot temperatures, this could lead to a continued breakdown of SMM that survives the boil. All right. And we're kind of getting into some of these concepts around timing. And so that's why we're rolling right into the boil. On the boil side of things, and this is where we usually talk about this a lot, or this is typically one of the things that we talk about a lot surrounding the topic of DMS. Most of the DMS in beer produced from the SMM precursor is lost or evaporated during the boiling process. Specifically, it was determined that the half-life of SMM at boiling point is 37 minutes, which means that half of the SMM is evaporated from the boil pot at 37 minutes. A boil of 90 minutes removes approximately 3/4 of the DMS, and most of the SMM is lost during a 120-minute boil. The vigor of the boil also contributes to final DMS levels in the beer. One study looked at the power input of a boil and the impact on DMS. The authors found that when the power input used for boiling increased, the levels of DMS decreased. Okay, so all interesting stuff to me. But this is some of the big picture ideas behind ridding yourself of DMS on the hot side of things. Just some big picture things to consider. Getting back to your very baseline question, man, I don't have the nerve to do that stuff. And people get hot opinions on this. When I was talking about that Rocky meme, people were popping off. They were name calling in there, okay? And it was about boil time. And the funny thing is with Instagram, the only people who leave rude comments are not people who follow me. Listen, I don't care if you follow me or not. That's not like coming from that space. But I don't know if I've ever had a single person that follows me that left something rude in the comments. But people were popping off about this. Oh, you want to waste your time? You want to waste that 30 minutes energy? Blah, 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 blah. I've never had DMS before in my life. But you look at the Janish article, and the point isn't getting to 0 for your DMS in your finished beer. You want to be below threshold and very low, right? You want to be not perceptible. So anyways, yeah, that's my thoughts on it. I love that DMS talk. And this is definitely a shout out for the Scott Janish blog, scottjanish.com. If you have not been reading it, you have been missing out. Ill-Gotten Grains, thanks for the question, man. And let me know if you have any follow-ups off of that, because I do see you here in le chat. That is French for the chat. Next question comes from, oh no, who was it? I forgot your name. I'm sorry, internet person, internet follower. They have a question about survivables. How important are survivable compounds when choosing which hops to use in an IPA? I think that is a great question, and let's dig into it. The first thing that I would have you do is I would have you download the seminal document. Maybe it's not the seminal document. I don't even know fully what seminal means. I kind of do, but from Yakima Chief Hops, Survivable Compounds, a Brewer's Handbook. Yakima Chief, have me out for a hop selection. I want to come out there and record it, and I want to do like a brew day, an in-house thing. You know what I mean? Let's do some behind the scenes stuff, baby. Let's do it. But this booklet that they have put out surrounding survivable compounds is really very great. It blows my mind to realize that this is about 4 years old right now. Time flies. But great booklet that they have here. And you're going to want to go to page 8 of it. And they have the survivables graph. And what they have is they have oh, you know what? Can I do this in real time? Everybody be patient with me real quick. I think I can do this pretty quickly. I might be able to throw it up on the screen for you because I'm a competent professional. Booyah. This should upload in just a second, and I'll be able to pull it up on the screen. So I'll be able to show you the page as we go through it. But just big picture, when we're talking about survivables, it means just that. The hops that you are using on the hot side of your process are those flavor and aromatic compounds going to express in the final beer, or are they going to express the way you want them to? Because fermentation impacts those hop oils. Oh, look right here. Look at us. We'll go to page 8 here. And if you full screen it, this might be helpful. But so right here, we have this chart going from left to right. We have the bars are going up very high on the far left, and they are diminishing as you go to the right. And then each one of those bars has a different breakdown as far as different colors in them, and they're going to tell you the compounds that are in there. So if you look at the left side of the chart, it's going to say hops that are good candidates for high impact early in the brewing process. And what they mean by that is late kettle, whirlpool, and does that say and dry hop? My eyes are bad. AFDH, after fermentation dry hop. I'm going to assume that that's what that means. Okay. And my eyes are a little wonky. But so they have a whole bunch of hops that are good for that late kettle approach. And they have what they were selling at the time, cryo pop. I don't know if they're still selling that or not. Centennial, Equinox, Talus, Citra, Sabro, Mosaic, HBC 586, which I believe is now Crush with a K, baby. Crush with a K, son. Simcoe, Idaho 7, Eldorado, Chinook. And again, these are good candidates for high impact early in the brewing kettle, late kettle, whirlpool, things like that. You go to the other side of the table and it says better utilized. What does that say? Oh, better utilized later in the brewing process. So in the kettle side, I'm having a hard time reading this stuff. I think I need to get my glasses checked. See, you never see me looking straight ahead because I think I'm always looking through my bifocals because I'm so mature. But so on that side, they have Nugget, HBC, 630, Cashmere, Laurel, Idaho Gem, Crystal, Amarillo, Atanum, Cascade, Willamette, Azaka, Palisade, and Comet. The first note that it has under here, it says hops with higher concentrations of survivable compounds have a better likelihood of being successful when used earlier in the brewing process than hops with low concentrations of these same compounds. Early additions include late kettle, whirlpool, and active fermentation dry hopping. Quick note on active fermentation dry hopping. Per the research that was done by, I'm sure, many people, but also Omega Yeast, if you are doing active fermentation dry hops and you're trying to have a stable haze in your beer, that might be getting in your way. So just small caveat there. So they say, for example, Equinox is a likely better choice for high impact whirlpool hopping than Palisade because it's on that side of the chart. This is because Equinox contains higher concentrations of beer soluble compounds that can survive heat and fermentation activity. When we go to the right-hand side of this table, this chart, if you will, this is where you're to use low survivable hops late. Similarly, we can say that hops with lower concentrations are likely to find better success and more positive impact in beer when used later in the process, such as post-fermentation dry hopping. For example, Willamette will likely make a higher impact in the finished beer if used later in the brewing process. That does not say Willamette is going to be this banger IPA hop. It's saying that you're going to taste it more in a dry hop than you will in the whirlpool. Okay. This is because Willamette contains smaller concentrations of beer soluble compounds that can survive heat and fermentation activity. So this is a great resource and you should definitely check it out. I would say though, kind of getting back to the original question is how important are survivable compounds when choosing which hops to use late. I think you use stuff like this as your guide, right? And I'm looking at it through the lens of, from a production standpoint, like you're making beer for a living, and you still do have to hit margins at some point. And we're using large volumes of hops in these beers. And so sometimes you make choices based on that. Well, if you have 5 pounds, 11 pounds or more that's going into your whirlpool, or that's part of your whirlpool hop addition, and ultimately you might not be getting hop flavor and or aroma out of it, then maybe you can pull that out, shift it in for something else, and either get more bang for your buck, or use something that has a higher level of survivables, maybe with a similar profile that you're hoping to get from it. And then you can actually cut down that volume that you're using, right? Because it's just not this. In the NFL world, it's dead cap space. You know what I mean? You sign some stupid contract, like, shout out to all my Browns fans out there, like Deshaun Watson. And if they were to cut him, they would have all this dead money or whatever. And maybe they wouldn't, because his contract is fully guaranteed. But it's this idea of like money that's just eating up your books, right? And it's the same concept here. Maybe you can get rid of some of that dead weight in your whirlpool and sub it even in with a smaller volume of something that has more survivables, and you may actually be getting more character out of that into the finished beer. I wouldn't say, though, that you have to only use these hops these ways. I mean, I know when I first got my hands on this chart, there wasn't anything I was ever going to do that was outside of the realm. You can still play around and try different things out. See what you're going to get. You're going to get different character out of things at different stages, right? So I don't want to make it sound like you can't ever do anything out of that, but I think you really should use this as a guide, because I think it is a very good guide, and very worthwhile. And you're going to see the usual suspects on here. Mystery question asker. I was going to use your name right there, but I can't remember. I forgot to input it. You're going to see the usual suspects in here. And yes, these are all Yakima hops that they're talking about. So we're not going to be talking about other people's brands or proprietary brands. But you're going to see Equinaut, Citra, Mosaic, now Crush, Idaho 7, Eldorado. A bunch of banger hops, and so those are your usual suspects for a lot of things. But yeah, I would encourage you, even though there may be an updated version of this list, as well as the number of varieties continue to expand. As we're seeing new hops released. Yeah. I would use it as a guide. I wouldn't be afraid to experiment, but definitely, it's definitely a solid guide to rely on for at least a starting point with some things. So anyways, appreciate the question. Once again, everybody, welcome to everybody in the chat. This is an Ask Me Anything Q&A pod. You want to talk recipe creation? You want to talk brewing? You want to talk beer? You want to talk craft beer? You want to talk life? Baby, drop it in the chat. Okay? We'll have some fun. Speaking of fun, man, bro, I love my coffee. It's not, it's Eastern time here. I shouldn't be drinking coffee right now. I'm going to come out of this thing all charged up. I'm an extreme extrovert, so I get done doing these podcasts. I just feel like I could just shoot fire out of my hands. And that's whether I'm caffeinated or not. Maybe this is why people watch and they're like, this guy's hammered all the time. And I'm like, sorry, baby. I just love life. And maybe I got a little caffeine in these veins. But you know what else is in there? Ice. Next question comes from Canjo Club Brewing on Instagram. I need another sip. I need another sip, people. I do a lot of talking. I get parched. Canjo Club Brewing on Instagram. Do you have any tips for building a social media presence as someone who is preparing to open a brewery? Kanjo, great question. You have some advantages, because the first thing I was thinking about is I was thinking about building a social media presence as a brand, as a person. All right. And so I embarked on the Adam Makes Beer thing in 2022. I started Instagram in 2022, and so it's been 4 years. I'm pretty quickly approaching 10,000 followers on Instagram. The original goal of my Instagram was to, I was recording the in-brewery content, and then, and I was going to make these, these longer form, brew day videos. But I wanted people to know that it was going to be on YouTube. So I kind of started to build an Instagram following to get ready to push people over to the YouTube channel. It is notoriously difficult, by the way, to get overlap. And I feel as if my YouTube audience and my Instagram audience are almost different. It's just a different group of people. Ironically, Instagram is proving to be the more powerful platform for me now, as Adam Makes Beer is a business for me. There's more value in Instagram than there is in YouTube. I still maintain the YouTube. They still get all the shorts. They still get the monthly brew days. I am going to be doing a couple other things on YouTube, but Instagram is actually something that is more desired from the brands that I work with. So kind of an interesting flip. Now, I have benefited from a couple of things. There is not a ton of pro side people that are doing educational content in video form in particular. Okay. So that was a help for me. All right. That helped me grow that thing. It helped me be noticeable. Okay. But as a brewery, sometimes you're going to be noticed just because you're there. You could still be in a part of the world where everybody's still stoked. They're going to follow you instantly, and there's going to be a line out the door as soon as you open your doors. Okay. And you don't even feel like you need to be doing social media. All right. And you'll just get your 10, 15K followers quickly. Obviously, you're putting content out, but the following comes easily. Okay. That's possible. Or it could be my experience, which was I have to grind for my following. I don't pay for anything. I'm like that dude, that's playing like the video game, the war video game, where you're building up your village and you get X amount of resources every 6 hours or 12 hours, whatever. And they always want you to try to pay for more resources. I never pay for those resources. And that's exactly how I play the social media game. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with boosting posts. That's really what they're angling for you to do. They want you to have some success, to taste some success, and then they will limit your reach in hopes that you will pay to have more people see your content. I know full well that if you follow me on Instagram, I drop at least 2 videos a day during the week, sometimes up to 3 or 4. The content is always the same. It's a meme. It might be an interview talking head, split screen talking head with a podcast guest, and it's going to be brewery stuff. Okay. And so the videos are similar enough to where it's like where you can say, well, this was good content and this wasn't. It's pretty much all the same. All right. And I will have some months where I barely grow, and then I'll have them. I'm in the middle of a month right now where I'm going to add, I think I'm 600 subs in the last, or 600 follows in the last 30 days on Instagram. Sometimes it just comes and goes. Today was a down day for Instagram. For me, just like with the views that I got. So know that it is built to get you to pay. Also, I think it's important to know that you need to try to follow the rules with your locality, with what you can be doing in that space from a legal standpoint. I do think it's probably a good idea to get your blue check mark on Instagram if you're looking to build Instagram. It is supposed to be able to give you a little bit of additional customer support. Just recently, we had kind of a ban or a blackout of alcohol-related pages, and they took them down for like a week, and they weren't giving anybody the views. So anyways, just some stuff to consider there. Big picture stuff with doing social media. I feel as if I'm getting to a point to where my social media is a quote unquote success, and maybe it's just an arbitrary number, but I'm getting close to 10,000. And so I think that's a good thing for somebody that's very niche-y like myself. And then, but I get good interaction too. I get questions, I get DMs. I interact freely with the people that are interested in my content. That's all good. So that's how I'm kind of measuring success. It really depends on, how you want to measure success. Are you looking for to build visibility? Are you looking to grow a local community? Because I'll be honest, you can have 20,000 followers, but if only 50 of them are in the town or city that you're in, it doesn't matter, right? I mean, I would much rather have way less followers as a business. I would rather have a really heavy following locally than I would this international following. You know what I mean? But my keys on that side to building that following, because a lot of time we think follower count, but actually like making impact with people and actually connecting with people. You don't have to be the funniest person, the best looking person, the smartest person. Case in point, you just need to be yourself. I think it's helpful to be excited and positive about what you're talking about. There's a buddy of mine, a guy I know, a Lake Ann Brewing. I had him on the podcast, Matt Therian. You should check. He's a character. But every day he jumps on Facebook Live and just says, good morning. He has his cup of coffee. Everything he does with the video is wrong based on standards, right? It's not edited. There's a lot of pauses, but he's like this real, like small town, like he's just like the everyman, kind of like salt of the earth kind of guy, right? And he just sits there and like chats it up with you for a few minutes, talks about the weather, talks about the musical act they have going on that night and what beer is on tap. And dude, he gets crazy interaction with that. Like literally go to their Facebook page, Lake Ann Brewing. It's in Lake Ann, Michigan. And look at the live streams that he does every day, just a little Facebook Live. And he gets great views, great interaction. And that's something that he's built, right? But it comes through consistency. You do it all the time and you just eat it when you're not getting any views. That's the only way it works. And yeah, you can boost and or pay to have people see some things, but if you can drive some things organically as much as you can, and I think you do that by being yourself, being positive, giving people a reason to be happy that you're going across their feed. So yeah, I don't know, but it could be a grind. I've been doing this for 4 years, dude. And I've sat down with people and explained like the whole thing because they were going to make a run at doing something similar, maybe a little bit different. Dude, it's hard. And this isn't like a back padding thing for me to be like, oh, I've been working hard for a long time. Because big picture, it's 4 years, but it's not like I've been at it for 30 years. But they reward volume, consistency, and quality. They want, and this is where we get into the sinister side of it, if you want to look at it that way. They want you to make content that makes people not want to leave their app. That's what they're doing. So there's different ways to do that. I think being yourself, being kind, being fun, show people what you're doing. Show people the people that are doing stuff. One of the reasons I love what I do is people get to see the brewers that are making the beer, the people that are the owners that are, working the dish pit when somebody calls off. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's my take on it, Kanjo. Hopefully there was something in there for you, and I appreciate the question. It wasn't coffee. You're right. It was Kroger sparkling water, dude. I mean, you're right. It had the sound of beer, but it has the taste of alcohol-free water. Question from the chat from PFOC, Pray for Our Country. Have you tried any of the new souring yeast strains? Are you a fan of any of them? Yeah, apparently I'm here to grind an axe. I have this wheel today. The light here, I have a new little light thing that I'm trying out. You know what I mean? Hey, don't get me started, but this came on this wheel, so I'm fussing with it. This has nothing to do with this question for PFOC here. I had somebody again. It was the interview video that I did with Hannah and Malik, a couple of channel all-stars, friends of the pod. We've done podcasts with them. I've done brew days with them. Good people. Go out there, give them a follow on Instagram, Beer Making Mama, and The Official Leak, I believe. I think it's just L-E-K. His name is Malik. Also does stand-up. You should check out his stand-up. But we were talking about the fact that they use Philly Sour for a beer, and she had mentioned that it was genetically modified. But the reality is Sourvisia, I believe, is genetically modified, not Philly Sour. So it was a slip of the tongue. You know what I mean? I didn't catch it. And I had a short made out of it. And it's always never somebody that follows you. And they're always like, ha ha ha, oof, ugh, embarrassing. That's not genetically modified. Sourvisia is. And you just like, you think maybe she just slipped up. Like, was it worth it? Is it worth an oof from some dork that's getting steam all over his face from his kettle because his kettle door doesn't close anymore, and he's just looking at Instagram thinking it should be me on that video clip. Maybe that's a mean thing for me to say, but sometimes I do think people just be like, well, why is this person on there? I should be on there. No, whatever, dude. You're not. You're just leaving shitty comments. So have you tried any of the new? Yes. I'm most familiar with Philly Sour. I think Philly Sour is useful. They've done a good job of giving there's a bunch of primers on how to use that. Fermentation temperatures, pitch rates, dextrose percentage for your grist build on how to maximize your level of acid that will be generated. I think Philly Sour is fine. Personally, I think that yeast strain can use a boost post fermentation. With either a little lactic or phosphoric acid. I would titrate that out, bench test it, baby. But if you are tasting that beer and it's finished form, if you hit it with fruit and it's still too flabby, it doesn't have the acidity that really makes things pop, or if you don't have fruit going into it, because I think it's a really easy yeast to use for like tart fruit beers. Bench test it and see like, hey, if I pull this pH down a little bit further, will this benefit this beer? I personally think that Philly Sour is a yeast strain that could use that. Haven't used Sourvisia all that much, but made a fair amount of beer with Philly Sour, and I feel pretty good about that process. But I would recommend going over to their website and digging into some of their tutorials on it, because they have some really good stuff over there. That was Pray for Our Country. Good seeing you here. Hopefully that helps. I have people in the chat make me laugh. Good to see everybody in here. I also wanted to shout out this. So I had mentioned at the beginning of the pod, if you weren't here at the very beginning, my son got married, and my son that just got married, he's the gluten-free one, just like me. And so he's been making a wide range of fermented ciders in different meads. But he's just wild. Like, he just lets things rot and then find out what happens. He's brought me a range of beverages, and God love him, he's the sweetest kid. He's just so experimental, though. Like, he's trying to make wild combinations of things, like figuring out, oh, well, if this is how it's supposed to be done, maybe I can do it like this. And he came home from Christmas, his last Christmas as a not married man. And he brought all his fermented treats, and we tasted through them all. And there was some pretty gnarly stuff in there. But he's going for kind of like a wild thing. So that was to be expected. And so we went through those, and he wanted like sensory notes and stuff. And we did all that. And it's a trip to do that with your kid. None of my kids have really expressed too much interest in it. And so it's got kind of a cool thing. So I ended up leaving that Christmas tasting with him of saying, like, listen, why don't you give a shot? Like, just make a nice clean cider. You don't manipulate ABV. Don't put a bunch of extra things in. Let's just get a really clean process and say, man, that's a really clean, balanced, easy drinking cider. I said, do that, and then start adding things. Then split that up and get funky. Like different things like that. Like, because I actually want him to learn the process, right? Because you can't be interesting without knowing the process. You can't get wild without knowing the process in some way, shape, or form. So he ended up going out and getting a gluten-free like sorghum extract. Okay, and he made a sorghum base beer, and he made like a little tart beer, like a little gosa using Philly Sour. And it was the night before his wedding, so he was out with the boys. They did their bachelor party. It was pretty tame. It seems like they're pretty sweet kids. They went to some spot. It's like a board game place or whatever, and they probably have beers there or whatever. So went out with the boys, played Catan or something, or maybe you say Catan, I don't know. And so I get a call at like 10:30 at night, and it's my son, and he's like, hey, Dad, we just got done with the bachelor party. Can I come by the hotel and bring that beer over? So he made this beer so he could share it with me before the wedding, right? And so he came over, and he has these like champagne style bottles, which is good because he's had some pretty expressive carbonation levels in those things. But anyways, he has the beer on ice. He comes over with tulip glasses, and we pop that thing open. We pour them out, and we did sensory tasting them. It was tasty, man. It didn't bother me in any way, shape, or form. It could have used a little more acidity, like we were just talking about, but coriander came through nice. Probably enough salinity in that gosa. Maybe he could have had a touch more, but just, I mean, like, hey, this is beer, and like, it's tasty. Like, I can drink this. You know what I mean? So it was cool to have a beer that I could drink, because I haven't really had beer in years. But also, it was cool that my son made it. And then the beautiful thing was, he just sat down at the foot of the bed with me and my wife. The two littles were sleeping on the pull-out couch and the suite that we rented. And he just sat at the foot of the bed and just wanted to spend time with us and talk to us the night before the wedding. So it was a beautiful experience. Yeah. Anyways, before I get too much in my feelings, but I might have to start messing around with, and I need some recommendations for gluten-free beer. I was talking with a guy on Instagram about ordering some gluten-free beer. I need to get that. I need to get it done. I would like to be able to have a beer sometimes, and even just from a sensory standpoint, I'm curious, right? So anyways, questions pouring in. Good to see everybody in the chat. This is gonna flow pretty well here. Bobby in the, I'm positive the username's a little different, but I'm pretty sure this is Bobby. Bobby in the chat, for hazies, do you prefer to do a biotransformation dry hop, post-fermentation dry hop, or a combination of the two? Well, Bobby, we referenced just a little bit ago that you really want to be, if you want to maintain haze in your beer, one of the elements that comes into play is you do want to be pushing any dry hop further back into fermentation. You want to be pushing that further back, right? Because if you get that green matter, that polyphenol matter into your kettle during active fermentation that's too active, you could be binding those things together and getting that yeast to flock out very hard, and having it be because it's not just yeast, but combining with some of the other proteins and really dropping those beers bright. I've used since I saw that happen before, I've used early fermentation dry hops to get a beer clear that I knew I needed to have really clear and kind of in a hurry. Okay, that's how well it works. So my take on that is I love loading up the whirlpool. I don't really put anything in early fermentation unless I'm looking for a brighter beer, and we're talking hazies here. So I love getting a solid mix of both cryo and T90 into your whirlpool, depending on what your kettle can handle. I feel pretty comfortable around a pound per barrel, and usually a blend of T90 and cryo. And then a post or late fermentation. So there's still a little bit of activity going on. You may be able to mitigate or ride the wave of the hop creep that seems to be relatively inevitable based on the research that is being done by Jessica Young. If you've not checked out my podcast on hop creep with Jessica Young, you need to, because the girl's got the brains. And she's putting the research on it. A smart woman. And she was a delight to interview. So you'll want to check that out. That's the way I like to roll with it. I like to go further back in the process. And I would also consider some of the dry hop liquids that are available now. Some of them are added earlier in fermentation, but that's primarily to make sure that it's fully dispersed, because it seems to be as if you're using that as a way, active fermentation, of dispersing those oils and making that homogeneous. So yeah, those would be some of the key things I would be doing there for you, Bobby. Hopefully you're doing well. I'm going to break these two up a little bit. Lizard Brews asks, any tips for making a white stout? This made me laugh Because I remember hearing about this white stout concept, like in the early days of the Brewing Network. When I was listening to the Brewing Network podcast, I remember they had Roger from, I believe now he's at Faction, but he made this white stout, and the idea behind it is that you are making a pale beer, like a white beer, but you are infusing it could be at various stages of the process with darker flavors. Okay. So flavors that suggest stout and the things that go along with that. I remember Roger making this beer like maybe early mid 2000s. Maybe my dates are a little bit wrong. Some people I know tend to claim to be the inventor of it, which I always feel like, I don't know. It's like in the same way when a brewer wants to say that they're an artist, you get into Kanye territory pretty quickly. You know what I mean? Now there is something artistic to what brewers do that have a certain acumen and things like that. Maybe you can aspire to that, but I have a history degree, but I'm not a historian. You know what I mean? But I know some people that will approach this and like, let's make a strong pale beer with a bunch of lactose and then pour a bunch of natural flavors in it that suggest stout. But when I was listening to Roger talk about it, he was talking about leveraging anything from wood, potentially like spirals, because that can imply stout. Maybe a cold steep on coffee, maybe like a whole bean approach, or maybe some crushed as well, but you're obviously going to get some stout type character out of that. He was saying, I believe that potentially he used some licorice in there, and maybe that came from like a star anise or star anise, depending on how you pronounce that. But these flavors that imply, so you can actually take actual things, like real things, which is probably like the more artistic thing to do rather than just pouring a bunch of flavors in it. And full well I'm not against using natural flavors in beer. I'm not. I think it's a great way to layer flavors, to amplify aroma. I don't have a problem with that. But I'm not always a huge fan of just saying, here's this beer, here's all this stuff poured into it, and here we go. But when I was listening to Roger at Faction, he was talking about building out a beer like that. Maybe had some other ingredients in there too. But just conceptually, it's one of those beers where you want it to be visually different than what it tastes like, right? For me, we made a hibiscus beer at Cartridge called Hollow Point, and it looked like a fruit beer because we used a tremendous amount of hibiscus. If you're interested in how I built out a really aggressive hibiscus beer and managed to find some balance with it, check out Substack I have on adammakesbeer.com, and I have an article in there about using hibiscus. But this beer looked like fruit punch. The foam was bubblegum pink. And it was awesome because, well, what I loved about it was it looked like a fruit beer, and it had like a cranberry raspberry thing going on, because that's what hibiscus can give you, especially at an intense usage rate. And it looked like a fruit beer, like a tart fruit beer, but it wasn't. There was no fruit in it. And so I love that visual juxtaposition, right? Or like one time we did, we were doing like we did basically like riffing on a like an old school IPA, and so like an old school like black or dark IPA, and so or like basically like the old like McDowell like super strong brown ale type concept. And so we had like the piney woodsy citrusy hops in there. But the beer was very pale. But we did a cold steep coffee with that, so it didn't pick up a ton of color. So if you close your eyes, you kind of get that old school like black IPA thing. But when you look at it, it's pale and brilliant. And it's like, oh, it's, yeah. Anyways, I geek out on that stuff. It's the same concept with white stout. I would build it out with flavors that imply stout without the color. That's the direction I would take that. So that's my take on a white stout. It is a fun novelty. What else? Well, listen, ladies and gents, you're going to want to get any questions in that you have, if you have not already, because this is the last one on my docket, I believe. Oh, I have two more. Oh, did I already? I kind of already knocked one of these out. I have three more. Whoa! Still get your questions in if you got them. Worms 18 on Instagram. Hey, Adam, I can't fit my question into the AMA question slot that I had. I need help with my New England style IPAs. I am filtering my water with an RO and building it back up with salts. I can never master the mouthfeel I'm looking for with New England style IPA. I use plenty of wheat notes. I also struggle no matter how many hops I use or what combo to make it bright or juicy enough. It's always dull and somewhat bitter. I never add bittering hops, solely Whirlpool at 75C. Make the conversions, you Americans, and dry hop. I usually ferment at 20C, which is like 68F. And I've tried LA3 verdant yeast, but with no effect. Would love some advice on this. I have tried all different dry hop rates. Okay, so first things first, let's make sure that I would want to make sure that the base water that I'm starting with is, I would like to have it tested and actually see if that's what the numbers actually are. If it's supposed to be zeros across the board, let's get it verified that it's zeros across the board. All right. Because if it's not, you could just be building on top of maybe a stripped down profile, but maybe you're not getting what you expect. On the softness side of things, I think there's a few things that play there. It does sound like you're using some notorious hazy strains there, and that's good. I would be, encouraging you to make sure that chloride is up to 150 parts at least. Some people go higher. I would try not to push your calcium contribution above 100 parts. That's just me. That's what I found success with. If I need a little extra, based on what your water profile is, if you need a little extra chloride without the calcium tagging along with it, you can look at having some kosher salt addition in the kettle. But make sure that you're not going to be pushing your sodium number too high. All right. Make sure that, and you might have to do some conversions because I see the metric that you're using. Scott Janish always says that if you're not dry hopping at a rate of 4 to 6 pounds per barrel, you might not be getting what you want. A, for your haze, and B, for your intensity or fullness. So my gut is. I would also be interested to know what your finish pH is on these. Sometimes with aggressive dry hopping or just dry hopping in general will push up the pH of your beer. And so if you can get a degassed filtered sample, even just if it's through a coffee filter, filtered sample of that finished beer, get it to room temperature, take the pH of it and see where it's sitting. It's very common to have aggressively dry hop beers above the food safe limit. So you might want to look at dragging that back down a little bit. I know so-and-so Hot Boy Brewery, they love to have all of their, IPAs that people are lining up the door at. They like to have it at 4.8 or something, which is not food safe. Good for them. That's awesome. Keep rocking that. That's fine. Pay your bills. All right. But just in general, let's try to keep things food safe. I would play with that. Those would be my key things surrounding this. There is a little bit of ambiguity here when you say I use plenty of wheat notes. I'm sure that you're hitting a range that you need, but you're not talking about you're really struggling with haze retention or anything like that. Another big killer, and it's the final point on this one, is another big killer on this is dissolved oxygen. So at packaging, at transfer, at any point, these beers are so fragile. These hazy beers are so fragile, and you can absolutely decimate your hop aroma by getting dissolved oxygen in contact with that finished beer. You don't want to do it. It can happen depending on your dry hopping practices. That oxygen ingress can come in there. So, there's a lot of options, but those are some of my big picture points on it, Worms. I think that's your first question. Good to see in here. I'm going to go quick notes on this next one. This next one is, I see questions in the chat. I'm going to get to you. Keep dropping them in there if you have them. This is from SRV. Maybe it's CV Ray Vaughn on YouTube. Hey, Adam. Wow, 3 years and no beer. That's a bummer. Sorry to hear about the gluten issues. I've given a couple of my friends. One is full-on celiac, a rice lager I made with Clarity Firm in it. Both people had 0 bad effects from this beer, and for the celiac, it was his first beer in 5 years. I'm sure someone of your brewing caliber has already tried this, though. Pardon me. What did Clarity Firm do for you? I'm sure it's way too expensive to use on a commercial scale. But have you tried it on a small homebrew scale? I've used it on the pro side, absolutely. So it's packaged as Clarity Firm as homebrew sizes, and then Brewers Clarex on the pro side on larger volumes. I've used it. It does not seem to bother me. I will say, but this is just like a small note for me. When I do have when I consume gluten by mistake, I've been pretty darn free and clear for about 3 years. I mistakenly had a bowl of soup that was thickened with 2 tablespoons of flour, and my wife doesn't even usually cook like that anymore. She'll use cornstarch, but and she said the soup is not for you. It's for the kids only. It's not gluten free. I had a bowl of soup out of that, so not even the full 2 tablespoons or whatever could have possibly gone into that bowl. But every time I get reintroduced to that, it's a worse reaction. It's an increased duration of relatively severe body pain in my joints and stuff. The GI stuff isn't even really the main issue. The main issue is I have an inflammatory thing where I'll put on 10 to 12 pounds of water, and that's where the pain is coming from. But then that's also where a really crippling level of depression and anxiety hits me. And so I have not drank anything with Clarity. I have in the past, but as I've gone on from it, I've gotten more and more strict, and probably it's a little bit of paranoia too. But it's just such a bad place to be in when I have those reactions. Yeah, so I probably flee from it a little bit more than I need to. I would probably have no problem doing tasting with that. I don't know if I would do pints these days. I would have to test it out. But yeah, those products are out there. Definitely read the labeling based on your sensitivities and the sensitivities of your drinking audience. But yeah, interesting product for sure, SRB. Hey, everybody in the chat. Good to see you. All right. Colton, you got a 3-parter in here. It looks like you wrapped up the question, so I'll take a look at that here in just a second. Yeah, lizard, chocolate and lactose, I think would be a good fit for that, especially if you're going for like the white chocolate, the white milkshake type thing with that white stout that we were talking about before. Yeah, and Lizard also says Brewers Clerics is good, but it doesn't take away all of it though. I've heard though that like the strip test that they'll do for it, it will say that it's below threshold for gluten sensitivity. But I've also heard and seen some research that said that even those compounds broken down still may have an inflammatory effect. So yeah, like things were bad enough for me for a while where I was like, when I wasn't able to figure out like stuff on the food side. Now I manage it completely with my food intake. But like I was wondering, like, do I have Crohn's? Do I have something like that? So I'm on a pretty limited diet, but it's manageable. And part of the reason it's manageable is because I want to feel like this and not the other way. So yeah. I got a question from Death Kid. Colton, your question is up after this. Death Kid on YouTube. Why the external heater? I've seen a lot of old British brewers have them. This is a question that came from the Mad Tree Brew Day when we brewed Psychopathy IPA. Beautiful Mad Tree Brewing in Cincinnati, Ohio. Check it out. It's broken down into smaller chunks. It's like a 10-part series. Check it out. Watch it all. You'll love it. It's cool to get into different production spaces, see different equipment. It can give you a different mindset for, we're all used to our own breweries, right? The breweries that we work at. When you see other people's gear, other people's layout, other people's approaches, it can be a real level up for you. So if you're really trying to grow in this industry, that there might be some value for you in there. So the heating source on their big old kettle, I'm trying to remember the volume, but I think it's at least 50 barrels. Maybe it's larger. Maybe it was 100 barrel. Because I think they had 200 barrel fermenters down in the cellar, so double batching into those. But yeah, regardless, they had an external calandria. And the idea behind the external calandria is you have your brew kettle here, and then you have something off a separate vessel that there will be a little supply pump. I believe we talked about this in the video. I think it does have a supply pump that feeds it at first, but then this external heating unit is heated by steam. And it'll end up drawing the liquid through it because it's hotter. It's going to pull that liquid up and through, and then it's actually going to spray it back over the surface of the kettle. Okay, and that's what's driving the heating. Okay, usually like in the steam setups that I've worked with in the past, there's jackets that go around, and maybe even on the bottom and then that's where the heat is being inputted. So the heat is right on the inside edges of the kettle. With the external calandria, the heat is actually on the outside. My guess is that this may be an efficiency thing. I do know when people talk about that process of utilizing the external calandria like that it can help with driving off DMS. It can increase evaporation rate. It can decrease the necessity of boil time. So that's but it's specialized equipment, right? So I didn't really talk about calandrias when we were talking about the DMS question earlier. But we did talk about heat intensity playing a role with that. So there are some cool things that you can do with it from an efficiency standpoint. And I think that those are the big benefits that people get out of using that equipment, and that's why they leverage that. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay. Oh, we have some good questions here. All right. Colton I don't know if I've seen you in here before. If I haven't, good to see you in here. I really appreciate the question. Hey, Adam, what are your thoughts on SIP under pressure? 5 to 10 psi under CO2, in a CO2 environment. We do it every time, less than 24 hours before a brew day, and leave under pressure after blowing out the PA solution until the next AM. Day of brew, we blow any remaining PAA solution out of all ports, then hook up blow-off hose into water bucket and slowly blow off the tank, which is under pressure still until it sits at 0 PSI. I'll add, zero issues. As far as infection, just curious your thoughts on this method. So Colton, this is something that I love to do. I love having I don't do it in a CO2 environment though. So what my typical path would be is I would run a full caustic cycle on the tank. I would have all the smalls busted off, all the sample valves broken down, preferably put through something with circulating chemical or a ultrasonic cleaner. So everything off the tank, I manually scrub ports, or I will actually hook up an arm to it that is the same size. So if it's an 1.5-inch port, it's an 1.5-inch hose that goes up to it. So you make sure you're hitting that full channel when you're pushing that cleaning or sanitizing chemical through. All that said, your caustic for your appropriate amount of time, your rinse back to pH neutral for your water source. If it is time for that tank to also receive an acid wash, you can acid wash that tank, rinse it, and then hit with PAA. As I'm hitting with PAA, I'm making sure that all the surfaces, all the shadows are getting coated. As I'm running that PAA, I'm pulling all of my already clean parts out of Sani, assembling them, building out the tank. And then I'll run that. I'll drop the chemical out of it, and then I'll pressurize it to 5 psi, and I'll seal that tank up. There is going to be additional PAA, appropriately blended PAA, that will rest in your ports. And potentially you might have some in your racking arm, and definitely in the dump and or standpipe but depending on whether it's a serving tank or fermenter or whatnot. I like to leave that at room temp under pressure. So just like you say, when I come in the morning, first of all, it's clean, it's good to go. If I'm messing around with grain, I'm not digging in a tank that I'm trying to sanitize the same day of. I get that sometimes you're a one-person show and that's what it has to be, but it is what it is. But if you can build that out, I've worked at places and I feel pretty good with the process that felt good with having that pressurized tank that they would give 2 to 3 days, but certainly overnight, I'd be fine with blowing out that residual PAA out of that and just leaving it sit. That way, your tank is holding pressure, because it sucks when your tank's not holding pressure and you're running wort into it. Ask me how I know. So yeah, I love that practice. I think it's awesome, Colton. And where are you brewing out of? You don't have to give me like brewery specifically. You can tell me what state you're in or what country you're in. That's cool too. Good to see you in here, Colton. That's my thoughts on it. Stubborn Hound Brewing, Adam, I was able to pick up some beers from Notch after hearing your podcast. Great stuff. I'm a home brewer and appreciate your content, learning about the commercial side. Good to hear it, man. Good to hear it. I appreciate the feedback. Mark, is there any worthwhile method for making a starter for dry yeast? I find my second gen repitch always performs much better subjectively shorter lag time, quicker fermentation, and potentially better beer? It's a great question, and maybe I did talk to Dr. Matt Winans about this. Again, he's gonna be on the pod next week. So great question. From my understanding, there's two things going on here. That dry yeast is not built for a starter. I believe I asked him this question before, and it is built to be dry pitched into a standard strength wort. That's 5 to 7% beer, 5 to 6.5% beer. That's what it's built for. Okay. It has all the lipids, all the nutrient it needs to be able to hit the ground rolling. Okay. That said, I think a lot of us have had the experience that successive pitches tends to be more robust, more dialed in. And I've heard a range of explanations for that. I've heard, well, the yeast is getting a chance to acclimate to your work profile, and maybe at like a larger brewery, that's the case, or something like that. But yeah, and maybe it is because even though it's well suited to come out of that dormancy, maybe that the repitch though is even in better shape than that. Keeping in mind with your repitches, and this is another thing. A lot of times people say that we'll talk about the volume of nutrient used, if you need nutrient, how much nutrient, and if that original pitch received nutrient, maybe that's one of the things that can. So dig into that stuff a little bit. I would go to the supplier, the raw material supplier that you're using, and I would dig into their fact page or what have you, and see what they have to say about nutrient use when pitching dry. So yeah. I think those are some of the elements. You know what I mean? I think those are some of the elements that could be coming into play there. I would also examine if you're, and this might not be it, I'm just spitballing here. Maybe that yeast will perform more the way you want it with a friendly wort. Okay, so and maybe this isn't the case, maybe this isn't your situation, but maybe if you can put it in a more yeast friendly beer, a smaller beer with lower IBU, you might get a superior turn out of that first generation. Then it's really ready to roll into something else, right? Just a few thoughts on it, Mark. I appreciate your question, and good to see you in here. All right. What else we got? Questions just pouring in. Colton, he brews in Arizona. He's over at Phantom Fox Beer, working alongside a killer head brewer. Thanks for your input. Thank you. I knew our method works was just hoping for more input to possibly improve our process. And you did just that. Thank you. We inherited an old brew with terrible slope floors, so SIP or CIP with open ports is tough. So usually running cycles with closed ports and scrubbing ports prior to CIP and post CIP to prevent tons of spillage. Yeah. Sometimes I don't know what you guys are doing, but that's where I'll utilize my elbows. If I have some 90-degree elbows, I'll put those on there. If they're slanted to the point to where you're dumping a lot of CIP liquid out of it, you can leverage that, and you can still drop them off to scrub them like while it's actively cycling, and then just slap your elbow back on there just so you're not dumping all of your chemical on the floor. I've done that quite a bit. One thing though, make sure though, if you're depending on what you're doing with the heating of your tank, if you're starting to cycle really hot liquor tank water in there for the first time and you have those elbows on, you've probably seen air like want to blow out of the ports. It will blow up. So you would want to angle those down. Just some things, just tiny little things that maybe, yeah. But anyways, yeah, the elbows. Yep. Awesome, Colton. Great to see you in here. What else? Dude, I think we did it all. And listen, I'm at 2 hours, dude. How do I even do this? How can I talk for so long? I've got problems. Yeah, appreciate it. Hey, everybody, listen, every time I do this, I'm always so thrilled to see everybody in here. It's an easy way to achieve your sense of gratitude for the day. Just so good to see everybody in here. Love talking beer with you. Always make sure to drop me questions. Anything. It can be beer stuff, career stuff. We'll dig into it. Love seeing all the new faces, the old faces in here. Please give some love to my sponsors because, again, they are helping to feed the kids. Also, there are $2.99 channel membership over on YouTube for like less than a cup of coffee or maybe a cup of coffee a month, depending on where you shop. You can show me a little love over there too. I appreciate it. But listen, times can be lean. If you don't have the scratch, enjoy what we do here for free because it's supposed to be a free platform. If you have the scratch and you want to kick a little my way, I appreciate it. But more than anything, hit up Senos, hit up Blickman for their free trials. Hit them up with the equipment stuff that you're looking for. Let them know that you heard about them from me. And that goes a long way. We've got a lot of cool stuff coming up. I'm really excited to see this year unfold. And yeah, I'll be back next week with Dr. Matt Winans. Be good to your people. Love to you all. And we will see you next time.